Hi, my name is Phoebe, and this is why you should watch Riverdale. In her 1964 essay Notes on Camp, Susan Sontag introduces the sensibility by saying, "The essence of camp is its love of the unnatural, of artifice and exaggeration." This slide features a few examples of camp that Sontag lists in her essay. This is the Brown Derby restaurant in Los Angeles, Flash Gordon cartoons, this La Lupe album. She mentions Tiffany lamps. You can kind of see the Tiffany lamp behind my head. Yeah. She elaborates later, saying camp sees everything in quotation marks. For example, the camp alternative of a lamp would be a lamp. Something which is purely camp at heart tries to be sincere and fails miserably. On the other hand, something can still be camp if it's evoking the principles on purpose. Sontag does also make it clear that if something is bad without ambition, it is not camp. In this presentation, I intend to prove that Riverdale is a camp masterpiece. An important conflict of camp is the dichotomy between naivety and consciousness. More specifically, Sontag says camp is either completely naive or else wholly conscious when one plays at being campy. But before I can get too deep into how Riverdale is defined by this dichotomy, I do owe you a little bit of background information on the show if you are uninitiated. So, let's begin. Riverdale is a CW dark teen drama which ran from 2017 to 2023. It had 7 seasons, totaling 137 episodes of this beautiful show were produced. The CW, if you're not familiar, is a network also responsible for shows such as Gossip Girl, The Vampire Diaries, and Supernatural, just to name a few. Riverdale is based on the Archie comics series, as seen above. Like its cousin, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, it took the original comic book characters and put them in the setting of a dark teen drama. It began as a relatively mediocre show about a murder in a small town. Think Twin Peaks, but 2017 and super corny. Pretty quickly, though, Riverdale moved past this initial concept. But really, the ever-changing plot lines in Riverdale are best exemplified by what you will see in my next slide, which is my credentials on this. They stand behind me. These are notes that I have taken on the show while watching because I got embarrassed by wanting to bother my friends and send them my thoughts, like every thought that popped in my head while I was watching Riverdale. So this started on the notes app of my phone, and now I have a Substack, and so I have like extended notes on every season on Substack. So yeah, this is just proof that I have seen the show and I've like watched it. And honestly, I watched season 1 of Riverdale when it came out initially in 2017. And then when season 2 came out, I like rewatched season 1 and 2. And then when season 3 came out, I did 1, 2, 3. I've seen the first season of Riverdale 8 times minimum. Honestly, possibly more. Uh, but I've seen every season at least twice. So I know what I'm talking about. So this is the melting point theory. This is the best way I have found to describe how a season of Riverdale will proceed. Basically, every season has an episode in which the plot simply begins to melt. As we can see in the graphs below, season 1 is largely solid. It's not great television, but it is comprehensible. The characters aren't exactly acting fully human, but they're doing an okay impression. I would define a season's melting point as the moment in which that final plot thread is added and then the scene transitions start to give you whiplash. You'll get to hear specific examples of this later. I think the recaps at the beginning of the episodes are also a great indication of how goopy the show is at a specific point in time. They stopped doing the recaps. I don't even know at what point. I think it's like season 4 or 5. It's like halfway through. They're just like, if you don't know what's going on, you don't know what's going on. And honestly, if you do know what's going on, you don't know what's going on. Um, so yeah, unfortunately, the recap tip only works for the first half of the show, I believe. Um, but yeah, the costumes and the performances of the actors are all kind of pretty consistent quality. Um, but it's not horrible because when you're watching it and the plot makes sense, you don't really notice how odd everyone's behaving or like how odd the costumes are. Like, why is this high schooler dressed like this for gym class? Like she's wearing pumps. Um, things like that. But the melting point is when shit starts piling up and then you notice these like foundational issues to the show and you're like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. You know? You can no longer suspend your disbelief on all of the factors that come together to make this show what it is. It turns to goop. That's really the best way to put it. It just turns to goop. So yeah, let's go through the chart. Season 1 is pretty solid and coherent. Again, not great TV, but it's not bad. It makes sense. They have a plot line that they follow. So that is something most of the other seasons can't stick to. So season 1 is coherent. Yeah. Season 2 is definitely softer overall than season 1. Starts to get a bit Jello-like in the middle, but it does kind of pull it together at the end and it has a coherent ending. Season 3 melts about 4 episodes in and then goes completely goopy and it does not regain its footing, not even close. I don't have season 4 on here. Season 4 is not good. Is it? I don't think it's good. It could not possibly have been that important if I didn't. I've seen it 4 times and I didn't even make it on the chart. Anyway, season 5, total goop through and through, but to slightly varying degrees. This section in the middle where it gets coherent is when they wrap up all the plot threads and then they age everyone up by 5 years and then they say we're adults now and then they turn adults and immediately liquid goop, total goo. So that's kind of that arc. Yeah. Season 6, complete goop. I didn't even make a chart. I didn't even want to waste my time. It just would have been that orange color, just straight through. It does not ever make sense. Season 6 is goop, purely. But finally is the crown jewel of the season, the series finale, season 7. It starts how season 6 started, pure goop, but season 7 just has that extra little comes out transcendent. It's incredible. In my opinion, once a season starts to melt, it gets exponentially campier. Here we return to the conflict I mentioned earlier between naivete and consciousness of the horrible qualities of a campy thing. In earlier seasons, the melting point idea seems to be completely unknown to the showrunners. The tone of the show is still completely serious, completely dramatic, despite all the ludicrous things that are happening. This is pure camp as explicitly defined by Susan Sontag in her essay. However, I think the most aggressively camp moments in Riverdale happen in season 7, when the show starts to become most aware of its own silliness. Season 7 of Riverdale really, it stands alone, it needs no context. I think everyone should watch it regardless of consuming the first 6 seasons of the show. And this is because at the end of season 6, the town of Riverdale is exploded by a comet, I'm not kidding, and season 7 opens on a new version of the same town, except kind of not really, because in season 6 it was Rivervale, but that's a whole other issue. Yeah. The year is 1955. All of the central cast are now sophomores in high school, despite being in their mid-20s when the comet hit town, and despite most of the actors actually being around the age of 30. All of the characters, except for one of the Jugheads, or maybe just Jughead in general. Jughead and then one of the Tabithas keep their memory. But they basically write the Tabitha who has her memory off, and she's like the guardian angel of the town, so because she can time travel. Which it doesn't make sense if you know the context, so it's like honestly not even worth explaining. But yeah. The showrunners also recast some roles, notably Jason Blossom, and they change around everyone's backstories. Season 6 plays a lot with the artifice inherent to a television show. For example, like a season or two into production, they recast the actor Reggie. Um, And in season 6, they like make in jokes about this and they bring the old Reggie back and they're like, why is there two, like, what? But anyway, they're taking the medium and they're like kind of exploiting it for what it actually is, and specifically focusing on television. Season 7, however, turns to the very original source material to make these kinds of jokes and gags. That's right. Season 7 actually cares about the Archie comics. Remember when I said they changed everyone's backstories? They changed their backstories from what they were in the show to what they were in the comics. Kind of. Yeah. Um, and as explicitly stated by Susan Sontag in Notes on Camp, comics are a medium that favor campy aesthetics. I said in the very beginning that Flash Gordon was one of her examples that she gave. The Riverdale costuming and makeup department fully leans into this aesthetic. The high school age characters in this show always dress way too adult and way too formal for a public school setting, but the age of the styles themselves and the comic book influences truly push this to the very edge. I'm talking stiff synthetic wigs, heavy makeup, in an attempt to disguise that the actors are 15 years older than the characters they're trying to portray. Garish 1950s clothing made out of quilting solids. It has all the fixins. I mean, they are not even pretending to have these people acting like teenagers anymore. It's insane. This is all in line with aspects of camp as Sontag discusses them. And speaking of acting like teenagers, or just acting in general, Archie's inflection gets straight up insane this season. KJ Apa is from New Zealand, and his American accent throughout the whole run of the show is just short of convincing. But in season 7, he gets this crazy, like, gee willikers, mister, tone to him. He's like really leaning into the 50s of it all. And it's a bold choice. Like, it is bold. It's off the charts. It's crazy. And also notable is Charles Melton, who plays the new Reggie. And he's a genuinely incredible actor who seems to be just kind of stuck in his contract through this season. He's like taking it really seriously though. He's like in the role. Yeah, at the same time of filming this season, he was also in May December, which was like pretty critically acclaimed for his acting performance in it. I don't think he got any Oscar noms, but like still. In fact, all of the actors are pretty seasoned at this point, except Tabitha and Veronica have a really severe case of what I call the CW line delivery disease. And if you've ever seen a single second of any show that the CW has put out, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And honestly, I don't think there's really a way to explain it. I think you know it when you hear it. I'm not doing an impersonation. That's the only way I could think to explain it. So yeah. Anyway, the cast and crew are all friends. The writers seem to be having a lot of fun and possibly consuming copious amounts of hallucinogens, which created an extremely high production show within a show, which also isn't a real show. Sontag writes that camp is the love of the exaggerated, the off, of things being what they are not. This principle is definitive of the plot, costuming, and acting occurring in Riverdale's 7th season. I know what you're thinking. Phoebe, how can you ignore the queer origins of camp as a mode of style? Don't worry, I certainly did not forget. I couldn't forget, because season 7 is incredibly gay. They make pretty much every character in this season some shade of queer, with the only exception, okay, they make everyone some shade of like bi or pan or queer or just like into everyone. And the only exception to this rule is like Cheryl and Kevin and Clay, who are like strictly homosexual. I don't think I can think of a single straight person in season 7 of this show. I mean, it ends with Betty, Archie, Veronica, and Jughead in a polycule together in a quad in 1955 in high school. But yeah, unfortunately, I can't think of. It's not that I can't think of. There's no explicitly trans characters in Riverdale. I do believe, though, that had the show not been cut down in its prime, we certainly would have had some, and they probably would have been poorly represented. I'm not even gonna lie to you guys. It's the CW. But yeah. And I bring the issue of representation up to segue into a slightly more personal tangent. I just wanted to show my appreciation for Cheryl Blossom a little bit. Cheryl starts the show as a pretty typical mean girl character. She's head cheerleader, she's got this posse of like generically attractive girls who follow her everywhere, etc. She's the queen of the one-liner, and she comes out as a lesbian pretty early in season 2. And her actress, Madeline Petch, is like was always through like all the press. She was like, Cheryl's a lesbian. She was advocating for this. She was like, Cheryl's a lesbian. Don't try to put her with a man. I know she's gay. She said, one time they tried to make me as Cheryl kiss a man and I was disgusted. I knew she didn't want that, which is hilarious because Madeline Petch is straight, I think. I don't know the Riverdale actors' personal lives like that, but I'm pretty sure she's not a lesbian herself. I think like just the character is. But anyway, I appreciate Cheryl for always bringing the drama to Riverdale. She is always at school in high heels and red lipstick. She is starting fights. She's lighting her mother on fire, and she is always the star of the musical episodes, despite the fact she can't really sing. I love her so much. She gets multiple girlfriends throughout the show, and she really gives us some good old-fashioned lesbian villainy, which I love. She's constantly U-hauling. When she's an adult, she adopts a bunch of orphan teenage girls and teaches them archery like a red-headed Artemis. Never makes sense, and she's always saving everyone's life, but usually after she has caused a load of problems herself. Especially in CW shows, it's rare to see a gay woman who doesn't have a horrible, tragic ending, and even rarer that she stays around and in fact becomes more plot relevant after she comes out. Anyway, just to call out that I think Cheryl actually is genuinely good lesbian representation. Um, yes, is it upsetting that the best lesbian we can get is like a beautiful, thin, white, cis, femme, like, I said like, ugh, lesbian, but like, it's something, okay? The CW used to give us nothing, and now we have something. So yeah. And Riverdale's really bad about its representation in general of like minority groups. It really fails hard at a lot of them. So at Cheryl Bombshell, I love you. And that concludes my Cheryl Blossom tangent. Thank you for indulging me. So this slide just, as stated, has some of the miscellaneous plot points, some of the batshit things that the Riverdale's writer room cooked up over the 7 seasons of the show. Feel free to pause and read. Just let it all flow over you. Yeah, there's some good stuff here. I don't even know. I don't even know what my face is covering, but it's fine. Like, yeah, anyway. Riverdale is a show that embraces artifice, has off-putting qualities of almost reality, has lofty creative ambitions, and is so great largely because of how terrible it is. It embodies camp in all aspects, and I think you should watch it because with this lens, it is a truly terrific viewing experience. As Sontag herself says, it is good because it is awful. And if this inspired you to tackle this show, I will recommend, I think this is the best way to watch Riverdale. So you start with season 7, episode 1, and then when you get to episode 19, you watch until 25 minutes and 36 seconds in. It's titled Chapter 136, The Golden Age of Television. At that 25 minutes and 30 seconds mark, you need to go back to season 1, episode 1, and watch the entire show. You get to the season 6 finale, you clock back in to chapter 136, The Golden Age of Television. You start from 25 minutes and 36 seconds in, finish the rest of that episode, there's like 20 minutes left, then you watch the series finale. It sounds crazy, but you gotta do it like that. I'm genuinely, because I watched the show as it was coming out, I could not watch Riverdale like this, and I would give anything to watch the show like this for the first time. So please use this as your call to action and watch the show like that. And most of all, enjoy this masterpiece of television.